The hearing room went completely silent. Director Tulsi Gabbard sat at the witness table. Her hands lay flat on the polished wooden surface. No fidgeting, no nervous energy whatsoever. 20 years of military discipline showed in every inch of her posture. Her dark blue suit was impeccable. A small American flag pin on her lapel caught the overhead lights. Behind her, the Senate Intelligence Committee seal loomed large on the marble wall. Across from her, Congressman Jamie Raskin leaned into his microphone. His wire-rimmed glasses reflected the camera lights. His gray hair was slightly disheveled, but in a way that took effort to achieve. He wore a blue blazer over a white shirt, no tie. It was the casual academic look, like an approachable professor, the champion of the people. His voice carried through the chamber, sounding theatrical and practiced. It was the voice of a constitutional law professor who'd spent decades in lecture halls. Madame Director, your record is deeply concerning. You have repeatedly echoed Russian propaganda talking points. You met with the brutal dictator Bashar al-Assad. You undermined American foreign policy at every turn. You questioned our intelligence agencies. You left the Democratic Party to align yourself with extremists. And now, incredibly, you hold the most sensitive intelligence position in our government. He paused for effect, looked at the cameras, then back to her. How can the American people trust you with our nation's secrets when your history suggests sympathy for our adversaries? The room waited for her response. Reporters leaned forward, cameras focused. Gallery observers held their breath. Tulsi didn't move for 3 full seconds. She didn't blink, didn't react. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, measured, but it carried the weight of command, the voice of someone who had given orders in combat zones. Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Senator Warner, the committee chairman, looked up from his notes. The witness is recognized. Tulsi stood, not quickly, not aggressively, but with the deliberate movement of a soldier coming to attention. Every eye in the room followed her as she rose. She's 5'8", not physically imposing, but her presence filled the space. That's command presence, something that can't be taught, something that comes from leading people in situations where mistakes cost lives. Congressman Raskin just called me a Russian asset. Raskin started to interrupt. I didn't say, she continued, her voice level and unstoppable. This isn't the first time I've heard this accusation. Secretary Clinton said it during my presidential campaign. Your colleagues repeated it on MSNBC for months. Your party's surrogates spread it across social media. And now, here in a Senate intelligence hearing, you've said it again. She looked directly at him, her eyes locked onto his, unblinking. I deployed to Iraq in 2004, a combat zone. I was 23 years old. I served in a field medical unit. I treated wounded American soldiers, young men, really just boys, with shrapnel wounds, bullet wounds, burns. I held their hands while they died. I wrote letters to their mothers. I wore this nation's uniform for 20 years. I still serve in the Hawaii Army National Guard as a major. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The words carried their own weight. I hold a top-secret, sensitive, compartmented information clearance. I passed the most rigorous background check in the United States government twice. I was confirmed by the Senate as Director of National Intelligence 78-21. That's bipartisan support. There was a pause. 2 seconds. So, I'm going to ask you directly, Congressman Raskin. Do you have evidence that I am compromised by a foreign government? Do you have proof that I am a Russian asset? Do you have anything beyond your party's talking points? The room was completely silent. Present your evidence now, or withdraw your slander. Raskin shifted in his seat. his confident posture wavering slightly. I didn't use the term asset. I said your statement's echo. You implied treason. Her voice hardened, still controlled but with an underlying steel. Against a combat veteran, against a sitting director of national intelligence, that's not a minor accusation, Congressman. That's calling for my prosecution, my imprisonment, possibly my execution. She let that hang in the air. So I'll ask again, evidence now or retract? Raskin's mouth opened, then closed. He looked to his fellow Democrats on the committee, who suddenly seemed very interested in their papers. No support, no backup. He was alone. My statement was based on your public positions regarding my positions. Tulsi nodded slowly. Let's discuss those. I opposed the Iraq War, the war I fought in, because I saw the waste, the lies, the young Americans dying for weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. She took one step forward, away from the witness table into the open space. I opposed regime change in Syria because I saw what regime change did in Libya. Chaos, death, terrorist safe havens, more dead Americans. Another step. I opposed endless wars in Afghanistan. 20 years, trillions of dollars, thousands of American lives. For what? So the Taliban could take over the day we left. She stopped 10 feet from his position. You supported those wars, Congressman, from your classroom at American University, from your TV appearances, from your comfortable congressional office. You never saw combat, never wore the uniform, never watched friends die. A final step. She was 5 feet away now. I earned my security clearance in blood and service. You earned yours in a classroom. There's a difference. The room erupted. Not applause, but shock, gasps, reporters typing frantically, cameras flashing. Senator Warner gavels repeatedly, "Order, order." Raskin's face had gone red, the veins in his neck bulging, his carefully cultivated professor demeanor cracking. How dare you question my patriotism? I have served this country and Congress for— I'm not questioning your patriotism. Tulsi's voice cut through his outburst, calm and precise. I'm questioning your authority to question mine. She walked back to the witness table, sat, folded her hands in perfect composure. Warner finally restored order. Director Gabbard, please continue with your prepared testimony. She opened a folder, pulled out a document, and projected it on the screen behind her. Before I became Director of National Intelligence, something happened to me. July 24th, I was flying from Hawaii to Texas for a campaign event. I arrived at the airport, checked in, and approached the TSA checkpoint. The screen showed a document, official letterhead, Transportation Security Administration, her name clearly visible. I was pulled aside for secondary screening. The TSA agent wouldn't explain why, took me to a separate room, searched my bags, questioned me for 40 minutes, and made me miss my flight. Another document appeared. This happened again and again and again. Every single flight for 3 weeks. Pulled aside, searched, questioned, flights missed, events canceled. Her voice remained calm, but there was an edge now, a personal pain underneath the professional delivery. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request. It took 6 months. I finally got an answer. A new document on screen, an email, internal DHS communication. I had been placed on the Quiet Skies Domestic Terrorism Watch list. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Quiet Skies is a program where air marshals follow American citizens on flights, monitor their behavior, and report back to headquarters. It's designed for suspected terrorists. She looked at the camera, at America watching. I'm a former presidential candidate, former member of Congress, a sitting major in the Army National Guard, and my government labeled me a domestic terrorist. Document after document appeared on screen. Air Marshal reports. Subject maintains calm demeanor. No suspicious activity. Routine travel. TSA screening logs. Subject cooperative. No contraband found. No threats detected. Every report said the same thing. Nothing suspicious. Just a citizen traveling. I requested the criteria for my watch list placement. DHS refused. Classified. But I filed complaints, got congressional allies involved, and eventually leaked information came out. A final document. The bombshell. An internal memo. Subject exhibits pattern of rhetoric, inconsistent with administration positions. Recent party departure and political endorsements raise counterintelligence concerns, recommend quiet skies inclusion for monitoring purposes. She read it aloud, every word clear, then looked directly at Raskin. Translation: I criticized the Biden administration. I left the Democratic Party. I endorsed Donald Trump, so I was placed on a terrorism watch list. There was a pause, not because I was dangerous, but because I was politically inconvenient. She pulled out another document. This one made Raskin go pale. Congressman Raskin, you served on the House Oversight Committee during this period. You were briefed on expanded domestic surveillance programs, including Quiet Skies. An email on screen from DHS to House Oversight Committee members, Raskin's name on the distribution list. You were told about Americans being watch-listed for political speech. You were told about expanded surveillance of domestic extremists. You raised no objections. You approved expanded budgets for these programs. She leaned forward. Did you know I was on that list, Congressman? Silence. Did you know that American citizens were being treated as terrorists for exercising their First Amendment rights? More silence. Did you care? No response. Raskin stared at his notes, wouldn't meet her eyes. Tulsi sat back. I'm not here for an apology. I'm here for accountability. Because if it can happen to me, a former member of Congress, it can happen to anyone, and it did happen to anyone, to thousands of Americans. She closed the folder. That's why I'm Director of National Intelligence now. To stop this, to reform these agencies, to restore Americans' trust, and to hold accountable the people who built this surveillance state. She looked at Raskin one more time. People like you, Congressman. Raskin tried to regain control. He straightened in his chair, adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat. The professor preparing to lecture. Madame Director, with all due respect to your service, Tulsi interrupted. Sharp, clean. Stop. He blinked. Excuse me? Don't do that. Don't start with all due respect to your service, and then follow it with disrespect. I've heard it 1,000 times. It's a tell. It means that you're about to dismiss everything I said. Raskin's face flushed. I was simply trying to... You were simply trying to condescend to me while pretending to honor my service. Just make your point, Congressman. No need for the fake respect. Senator Warner intervened. Director Gabbard, let's maintain decorum. I'm maintaining truth, Mr. Chairman. Sometimes the two conflict. She stood again, reached into her briefcase, pulled out something small, metallic, and set it on the witness table with a sharp thud that echoed through the chamber. Combat Medical Badge, awarded for serving in a combat zone providing medical care under direct or indirect enemy fire. Iraq, 2004 to 2005. Another item, a cloth patch, blue and gold. Kuwait deployment patch. Second deployment, 2008 to 2009. 15 months total deployed time. She pulled out her phone. Photos projected on the screen. First image, Tulsi in Iraq, 23 years old. Kevlar helmet, body armor, rifle slung across her chest. Face dirty, exhausted, standing outside a medical tent. The desert stretched behind her, endless, hostile, real. Second image, inside the medical tent, a wounded soldier on a gurney. Blood, bandages, Tulsi's hands working, focused, saving a life. Third image, rows of soldiers in formation, saluting. A ceremony, young faces. Some never came home. That's what service looks like, Congressman. Not classroom lectures, not faculty lounges, not Harvard degrees. She pulled up different photos now. Raskin's graduation, Harvard Law, cap and gown, smiling, parents beaming, a bright future. Raskin's faculty photo at American University. An office with books, a comfortable chair, diplomas on the wall, safe, protected, elite. Raskin teaching a classroom, students taking notes, a chalkboard behind him. Constitutional law, theory, abstract. I don't question your patriotism, Congressman, but I question your authority to question mine. You taught law while I bled for this country. Those are not equivalent. Raskin tried to respond, my service to this nation as an elected representative. You were elected. I volunteered. When I was 18 years old, I signed up to die if necessary. What did you sign up for at 18? He had no answer. I'll tell you what you signed up for. College, Harvard, law school, a comfortable career. Nothing wrong with that. But it's not service. It's ambition. She pulled out more documents. Let's talk about your positions on war, because you accused me of echoing enemy propaganda for opposing wars. A timeline appeared on screen. Raskin's voting record and statements. Iraq War Authorization, 2002. You supported it. Said it was necessary to combat terrorism. Libya Intervention, 2011. You supported it. Called it humanitarian. Syria Intervention Proposals, 2013 to 2017. You supported all of them. We must stop Assad. Afghanistan Surge, 2009. You supported it. Strategic necessity. Each position appeared on screen. Quotes from his speeches, floor statements, media interviews. Every war, every intervention, every bombing campaign, you supported them all from the safety of Congress, never putting on a uniform, never deploying, never wondering if you'd come home. Her voice hardened. I opposed those wars because I fought in them. I saw the cost, not in theory, but in reality, in blood, in shattered bodies, in young men crying for their mothers as they died. She pointed at the photos behind her. I carried a wounded soldier to a helicopter while mortars fell around us. I held pressure on a femoral artery for 40 minutes because, if I let go, he'd bleed out. I watched 19-year-old kids with their legs blown off, asking me if they'd walk again. Pause. Her eyes locked on his. You watched none of that. You read about it in the New York Times over coffee in your comfortable home, and you decided more war was the answer. So when I came home and said, these wars are wrong, they're not making us safer, they're wasting American lives, you called me what? Isolationist, appeaser, Assad apologist, Russian asset. She walked toward him again, 5 steps, then stopped. I didn't learn about war from textbooks, Congressman. I learned it with my hands covered in American blood. And when I say a war is unjust, I'm not echoing Russian propaganda. I'm speaking from experience you will never have. The room was silent. Even Raskin's Democratic allies looked uncomfortable. They knew she was right. They knew he was outmatched. Veteran versus academic. Experience versus theory. Reality versus abstraction. Raskin tried a different angle. His voice softened, taking on a pained tone. Madame Director, I lost my son, Tommy. He took his own life on December 31st, 2020. He was 25 years old. His voice cracked, practiced, perfect. So, I understand loss. I understand pain. I understand. Tulsi's voice cut through, not loud, but final. Stop. He looked up, shocked. Stop using your son's death as a shield. Gasps from the gallery. Even some Republicans looked surprised. Nobody interrupts the grief card. Your son's death is a tragedy. I mean that genuinely. No parent should bury their child. My heart breaks for your family. Pause. But don't use his memory to deflect from accountability. You do this every time you're challenged. You bring up Tommy. You cry. You make people feel guilty for questioning you. That's manipulation. Raskin's face transformed from grief to rage in an instant. How dare you? I dare because someone needs to say it. Her voice remained calm, firm, unshakable. Your grief is real. Your loss is real, but it doesn't excuse your actions. It doesn't make you right. It doesn't give you permission to weaponize government against citizens. She pointed to the gallery. There are families here who lost loved ones because of January 6th prosecutions. Fathers in prison for trespassing. Mothers who lost jobs for attending a rally. Children growing up without parents. Where's your empathy for them? Where are your tears for their families? Devastating silence. You use your son's death as a shield against criticism and a sword against opponents. That's not grief, Congressman. That's exploitation. Raskin couldn't speak. His mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. 2 things can be true. You're a grieving father, and you're a congressman who abused power. Your grief doesn't cancel your guilt. She walked back to the witness table, sat, and opened another folder. Now, let's discuss the real issue, the Russian asset accusation. The screen behind Tulsi lit up with a comprehensive timeline. Years of accusations, statements, media appearances, a systematic smear campaign displayed in chronological order. Let's address this directly. The claim that I am a Russian asset. The lie you and your colleagues have repeated for years. The first entry appeared March 2017. I met with Bashar al-Assad, a fact-finding mission. As a member of Congress, this is standard diplomatic practice. Members of Congress meet with foreign leaders regularly, including leaders we disagree with, including dictators. Photos appeared, other congressional delegations, Republicans and Democrats, meeting with Saudi leaders, Chinese officials, even Assad in earlier delegations from both parties. But when I did it, you called it treason. She didn't wait for an answer. Because I came back and said this regime change war in Syria is wrong. I said we're arming jihadists. I said this will create another Libya. And I was right. But you didn't want to hear it. Next timeline entry, October 2019. Hillary Clinton appeared on a podcast, said, and I quote, "I think she's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots supporting her candidacy. I'm not saying she's an asset, but she's clearly a Russian asset." End quote. An audio clip played, Clinton's voice. The actual quote, undeniable. Notice the construction. "I'm not saying she's an asset, but she's an asset." Plausible deniability. Say it without saying it. More timeline entries cascaded down the screen. NBC News. Is Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset? RTNT. Sand feet. CNN. Tulsi Gabbard's suspicious relationship with Russia. MSNBC. Former Congresswoman accused of amplifying Kremlin talking points. Washington Post. Tulsi Gabbard's troubling views on Russia. Dozens of headlines, hundreds of articles, years of accusations, 4 years of this. Not one shred of evidence, not one proof, just accusation after accusation. "Because I opposed your wars, because I left your party, because I dared to dissent." She pulled out an official document, FBI seal visible. "The FBI investigated me twice. First in 2019 during my presidential campaign, a counterintelligence investigation. Did I have improper foreign contacts? Was I coordinating with foreign governments? Was I compromised?" She read the conclusion. Quote, "Investigation found no evidence of coordination with foreign government entities. No evidence of improper contacts. Subject maintains appropriate security protocols and demonstrates proper handling of sensitive information. No derogatory information identified." End quote. Another document, a second investigation, 2022, after I left the Democratic Party. Same questions, same process, more thorough this time because I was being considered for senior positions. She read again, quote, "Extensive background investigation completed. Subject interviewed multiple times. Financial records reviewed. Travel history analyzed. Communications examined. No evidence of foreign influence or compromise detected. Subject recommended for top-secret, sensitive, compartmented information clearance renewal." End quote. She set the documents down, looked at Raskin. "I passed twice. Clean. Because there's nothing there. Never was, never will be." A new document appeared. Her security clearance certificate. Current, valid, top secret, CI. The highest level. "You know what disqualifies someone from this clearance level, Congressman? Foreign influence, unexplained foreign contacts, financial connections to foreign entities, anything suggesting compromise or susceptibility to blackmail. I passed the most rigorous security investigation in the United States government multiple times, including a full-scope polygraph. Do you know what they ask in those polygraphs?" She leaned forward. "Have you ever been approached by a foreign intelligence service? No. Have you ever agreed to provide information to a foreign government? No. Have you ever accepted money or gifts from foreign entities? No. Have you ever engaged in any activity that could be used to blackmail or coerce you? No. Clean. Every question, every test, every investigation, because I'm not a Russian asset. I'm an American patriot who disagrees with your foreign policy." She stood, walked to the center of the room. "But let's talk about your foreign contacts, Congressman." A new timeline appeared. Raskin's travel records, public information, congressional delegation reports. "You've traveled to Israel 8 times in 5 years, met with Israeli intelligence officials, attended conferences funded by foreign lobbying groups, received briefings from Mossad." Another document. "Your campaign committees received $147,000 from pro-Israel PACs in the last election cycle. Much of that money originated from foreign nationals donating through American intermediaries. You've met with Ukrainian officials dozens of times since 2022. You've advocated for billions in aid. You've pushed for weapons transfers. You've called for more American involvement. Photos appeared. Raskin with various foreign officials, handshakes, meetings, smiling photos. I'm not saying you're compromised. I'm not saying those contacts are improper. They're not. They're normal congressional activity. Pause. But by your standard, the standard you apply to me, you'd be suspicious too. Foreign money, foreign contacts, foreign policy positions that align with foreign governments. The difference, you met with allies, so it's patriotism. I met with an adversary to understand their position, so it's treason. You support Israel, so it's pro-American. I question regime change wars, so it's pro-Russian. Her voice rose slightly, not a shout, but with force. The word you're looking for isn't Russian asset, Congressman. It's political opponent. And in your world, those are the same thing. She walked back to her seat, didn't sit yet, stood behind the chair, hands on the backrest. You don't have evidence because there is no evidence. You have disagreement, policy differences, a former Democrat who exposed your party's corruption and left. That's what you can't forgive. Not some imaginary Russian connection. My betrayal of your tribe. She finally sat. I'm not betraying America. I betrayed you, and you can't handle it. Tulsi opened a new folder, thicker than the others. Official seals were visible on multiple documents. This is the counterattack, the kill shot. Congressman Raskin, you served as vice chair of the January 6th Select Committee. Raskin straightened, proud of this, his defining work. I did. We conducted the most thorough investigation into an attack on our democracy. You withheld evidence. The room went silent. Reporters stopped typing, cameras zoomed in. Excuse me? You withheld evidence from the American people, from defendants, from the courts. She pulled out a document, official letterhead, Department of Defense. As Director of National Intelligence, I have access to all intelligence, including Capitol Police communications from January 6th, including FBI reports, including Department of Defense readiness assessments, including evidence your committee had but chose not to release. The first document appeared on screen. Heavily redacted, but key passages were visible. Capitol Police Memo, January 5th, 2021. One day before, quote, Intelligence assessment suggests possible violence at tomorrow's rally. Crowd size estimates between 200,000 and 500,000. Recommend National Guard deployment. 3,000 troops minimum. Perimeter expansion advised. End quote. Tulsi looked up. That recommendation was sent to House leadership, including Speaker Pelosi, including Congressman Hoyer. They declined. No National Guard deployed in advance. Your committee had this document. Never mentioned it in hearings. Never released it publicly. Why? Raskin tried to interrupt. The security failures were... I'm not done. Her voice hardened, a command voice, the voice that stopped men in combat zones. He closed his mouth. Second document, FBI Washington Field Office Report, January 4th, 2 days before. Quote, Source reporting indicates Proud Boys leadership planning, defensive posture on January 6th. Expect confrontation if Antifa or counter-protesters engage. Assessment. Limited violence potential. No credible threats to Capitol complex. End quote. Pause. The FBI assessed limited violence potential 2 days before. Your committee presented this as a planned insurrection, a coordinated attack. Proof of Trump's plot. But the FBI's own assessment 2 days prior said limited violence. Another document. Third document. National Guard Deployment Authorization Timeline. This is critical. A timeline appeared on screen, minute by minute. 2:24 p.m. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sunund requests National Guard assistance. Denied by House Sergeant at Arms Paul Irving. 2:36 p.m. Chief Sunund calls Army Secretary McCarthy directly, requests immediate deployment. McCarthy says he needs Pentagon approval. 3:04 p.m. Pentagon leadership meeting convened. Debate about optics of troops at Capitol. 4:32 p.m. National Guard finally authorized over 2 hours after initial request. Tulsi stood, pointed at the timeline. 2 hours while officers were being assaulted, while the building was breached, while people were in danger. The National Guard sat 8 miles away waiting for permission. Your committee blamed Capitol Police Chief Sunund, blamed Trump. But this timeline shows Pentagon delays, congressional leadership delays, bureaucratic paralysis. You had these documents, never showed them, because they complicated your narrative. Raskin was on his feet now. We showed extensive timeline evidence. You showed selective evidence, only what fit your conclusion. Let me show you what you hid. Video began playing on the screen from multiple angles, security camera footage. This is from Capitol Police cameras. January 6th, 2:47. The video showed Capitol Police officers opening doors, waving people into the building. Not fighting them, not resisting, but inviting them in. Magnetic locks on these doors require active release. Someone inside had to open them. These weren't breached, they were opened. More video angles, different doors, same pattern. Officers standing aside, people walking in calmly, looking confused, some taking selfies. Your committee showed video of violent entry, breaking windows, fighting police. That happened. But you didn't show this. Hundreds of people simply walked in through open doors, waved in by officers. Why not? Because it suggests something more complex than your insurrection narrative. She pulled out another document. This one made Raskin pale. Committee Internal Memo, June 2022, marked Attorney-Client Privilege, but as DNI, I can access it through intelligence oversight. She read slowly. Quote, discussion regarding FBI informant and undercover agent presence on January 6th. Recommendation, do not emphasize in public hearings could undermine narrative of organic uprising. Focus on Proud Boys and Oath Keepers leadership. End quote. That's from your chief investigative counsel advising you to hide FBI presence in the crowd. Raskin tried to speak. His voice cracked. Those informants were, how many? Silence. How many FBI informants were in the crowd that day, Congressman? He wouldn't answer. I'll tell you because now I have access to that information. 26 FBI informants were in the crowd on January 6th. Gasps from the gallery. Even senators looked shocked. Some were in Proud Boys leadership, some in Oath Keepers, some just in the crowd, all reporting back to the FBI, all providing intelligence. And your committee knew because the FBI briefed you multiple times. A new document, FBI briefing to January 6th Committee, March 2022. Quote, Bureau assets provided real-time intelligence on January 6th. Asset reporting indicates no pre-planned violent attack on Capitol. Crowd action appeared spontaneous response to building breach by initial group. End quote. Tulsi's voice rose. No pre-planned violent attack. That's what the FBI's own informants reported. But you sold America a coordinated insurrection. A planned attack. An attempted coup. You withheld evidence of FBI informants. You withheld evidence of National Guard delays. You withheld evidence of Capitol Police opening doors. You withheld evidence that contradicted your predetermined conclusion. She walked toward Raskin. He was sitting now, deflated. You didn't conduct an investigation, Congressman. You produced a show trial. You had your conclusion before you saw evidence, and you destroyed anyone who didn't fit that conclusion. A final document appeared. 673 Americans charged with crimes related to January 6th. Many for trespassing, some for parading. One man charged for walking through an open door, taking a selfie, and leaving. Photos of defendants appeared. Regular people, grandmothers, veterans, small business owners, their lives destroyed, careers gone, families bankrupted, all while you hid evidence that might have helped them. She stopped 5 feet from Raskin. That's not justice. That's not defending democracy. That's weaponizing government to punish political opponents. Her voice dropped to a near whisper, but every word carried. And you did it all while claiming to protect the Constitution. Tulsi returned to the witness table, opened the largest folder yet. A comprehensive report, hundreds of pages, the DNI seal prominently displayed on the cover. In my first 60 days as Director of National Intelligence, I ordered something. A comprehensive audit of all domestic surveillance programs, every watch list, every monitoring system, every database, tracking Americans. She lifted the report, heavy, substantial. What I found was staggering and terrifying. The first page projected on screen, Executive Summary. 47,000 Americans on various government watch lists. Not foreign terrorists, not international criminals. Americans, U.S. citizens living in the United States. She flipped to the next section. Of those 47,000, 2,000 were added between January 2021 and December 2024, the Biden administration's first term. Another page. Criteria for inclusion. She read directly from the report. Quote, participation in January 6th rally or related activities. Posted anti-government rhetoric on social media. Association with mega political groups. Donated to certain political candidates. Expressed support for election integrity claims. End quote. Let that sink in. 4,800 Americans watch-listed for attending a political rally. Not for entering the Capitol, not for violence, but for attending a rally. First Amendment protected activity. 8,200 Americans watch-listed for social media posts criticizing lockdowns, questioning elections, supporting Trump's speech, protected speech. 3,400 Americans watch-listed for associating with mega groups, joining a political movement, also protected by the First Amendment. Photos began appearing on screen. Real people, redacted names, but faces visible. Grandmother from Wisconsin attended Trump rally on January 6th. Never went near Capitol, stayed on the mall, went home. 6 months later, pulled aside at airport, questioned, watch-listed. Next photo. Veteran from Texas posted on Facebook criticizing Biden administration's Afghanistan withdrawal. Former Army Ranger, Purple Heart recipient. Watch-listed. Next photo. Small business owner from Florida donated $500 to Trump campaign. Posted American flag emojis on Twitter. Watch-listed. Photo after photo. Regular Americans, grandparents, veterans, business owners, teachers, nurses, truckers. These aren't terrorists, Congressman. These are citizens exercising constitutional rights, and their government labeled them threats. She closed the report, looked directly at Raskin. Your committee recommended this in your final report, December 2022, Chapter 7. Recommendations for preventing future attacks. She pulled up the specific text. Quote, Expand domestic terrorism monitoring capabilities, increase social media surveillance, lower threshold for watch list inclusion, broaden definition of domestic violent extremism to include rhetoric that could inspire violence. End quote. Translation: spy on more Americans for their speech, for their politics, for their beliefs. You built this system, Congressman. You and your colleagues on that committee. You turned intelligence agencies designed to stop al-Qaeda into tools to target American citizens. A new document appeared. She held it up. Department of Homeland Security Internal Memo, March 2023. Quote, pursuant to congressional recommendations from January 6th Committee, expand Quiet Skies program to include individuals flagged for domestic extremism indicators. Indicators include attendance at Stop the Steal rallies, social media posts questioning election results, association with militia groups or mega organizations. End quote. She set it down carefully. That's how I ended up on a terrorist watch list, not because I'm dangerous, but because I criticized the government, because I left the Democratic Party, because I endorsed Donald Trump. If it can happen to me, former Congresswoman, presidential candidate, combat veteran, sitting DNI, it can happen to anyone, and it did. She stood again, the final stretch, the crescendo building. You weaponized the intelligence community. You turned the FBI into a political police force. You made the IRS target conservatives. You used the DOJ to prosecute opponents. You built a surveillance state aimed at Americans. And you did it all while crying about threats to democracy. Her voice filled the room, not shouting, but powerful, undeniable. You are the threat to democracy. Congressman, you're the one who weaponized government. You're the one who spied on citizens. You're the one who labeled political opponents as terrorists. You're the tyrant you claim to fight. Raskin was cornered, desperate. His face had gone from red to pale, sweat visible on his forehead despite the air-conditioned room. His carefully constructed professor persona shattered. The smug academic was replaced by a panicked bureaucrat, watching his world collapse. He tried one more counterattack, stood shakily, gripping the table's edge. Madame Director, your accusations are serious, but you're ignoring the real threat, the real danger to this country, which is disinformation, Russian propaganda, the undermining of our institutions. Tulsi didn't move, didn't react, just watched him. We had to take extraordinary measures. Yes, because the threat was extraordinary. An attempted coup, an insurrection, the first violent transfer of power in American history. Congressman, her voice cut through his building momentum, calm, surgical. Did you leak classified information to the media? He stopped mid-sentence, mouth hanging open. What? Did you leak classified information? Yes or no? I don't. That's not. We had authorization to. Show me the authorization. Show me the declassification order. Show me the approval from the Intelligence Committee. Show me any documentation that you were permitted to discuss classified information with reporters. His mouth worked, but no sound came out. Tulsi pulled out new documents. These were the kill shots, the evidence she'd been building to. In your role on the January 6th Committee, you had access to classified intelligence briefings, FBI reports, NSA communications intercepts, CIA assessments, top-secret SCI material. The first document appeared on screen. You then appeared on television repeatedly. Let me show you. A video montage began, Raskin on various news shows. MSNBC, March 2022. I've seen intelligence that shows clear coordination between Proud Boys leadership and... He stops himself. I can't say more, but it's damning. CNN, June 2022. The evidence includes communications between Trump's inner circle and... Again, stops. Classified, but Americans will understand when it's released. ABC, September 2022. We've been briefed by intelligence agencies about the role of... And then stopped. And I shouldn't say more. National security. Clip after clip. Raskin dancing right up to the line, sometimes crossing it, always implying he knew secrets, always suggesting classified information supported his position. Tulsi froze on one particular clip. That MSNBC appearance, March 22nd, 2022. You said, quote, I've seen intelligence that shows clear coordination between Proud Boys leadership, end quote. She pulled out a document, an FBI classification stamp visible. That intelligence was a top-secret FBI field report dated March 15th, 1 week before your appearance. It contained specific information about Proud Boys' communications intercepts, methods, and sources. Another document. Those methods and sources were compromised 10 days after your appearance. FBI counterintelligence investigation traced the leak to your interview. Proud Boy leadership changed communications methods immediately after. She looked up from the document directly at Raskin. You revealed classified sources and methods on national television to score political points. And you compromised an ongoing FBI investigation. More examples. Rapid fire. CNN appearance, June 7th. You discussed classified communications between Trump's inner circle. That information came from a National Security Agency intercept, TSSCI. You weren't authorized to even hint at its existence. ABC appearance, September 19th. You mentioned intelligence agencies briefed us about the role of, and then stopped. But you'd already revealed there was intelligence about a specific role in a specific context. That's classification spillage. Document after document. 12 separate instances where Raskin either directly revealed or heavily implied classified information in media appearances. I've referred all 12 instances to the Department of Justice for prosecution consideration under Title 18, United States Code Section 798. Disclosure of classified information. She set the stack of documents on the witness table. The sound echoed. Each count carries up to 10 years imprisonment. The room was dead silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Raskin's lawyer, who had been sitting behind him trying to be invisible, finally stood, leaned forward, and whispered urgently in Raskin's ear. Raskin waved him away. Mistake. Huge mistake. I had authorization. The committee authorized. The committee doesn't grant declassification authority. Only the originating agency can declassify information. Did the FBI authorize you to discuss their field report? No answer. Did the NSA authorize you to reveal the existence of their intercepts? No answer. Did any intelligence agency give you written permission to discuss classified information in media appearances? Silence. Damning silence. You leaked, Congressman, without authorization for political advantage, to damage your opponents, to build your narrative, to make yourself look important on television. She walked toward him slowly, deliberately. The intelligence community has a saying, loose lips sink ships. We drill that into every person with a clearance from day one. Don't talk about classified information ever. Not to family, not to friends, definitely not to reporters. But you did, repeatedly, 12 times, because you thought you were special, above the rules, that your political goals justified breaking the law. She was 5 feet away now. Let me tell you about someone else who leaked classified information. Reality Winner, an NSA contractor, leaked a classified report to The Intercept. She believed it served the public interest, thought Americans needed to know about Russian interference. She got 5 years in prison, served 3, a felony conviction, her life destroyed. How is what you did different? Raskin finally found his voice, weak, defensive. I'm a member of Congress. I have oversight responsibilities. Context is important. Yes or no? The shout echoed, a command voice at its maximum, the voice that can make soldiers freeze in place. Did you leak classified information without proper authorization? Yes or no? Everyone in the room jumped, including senators, reporters, and Raskin. He stammered, The information I shared was, I believed it was important for the American people to. That's a yes. You just admitted it on camera, under oath. You leaked classified information because you believed it was important. She turned to Chairman Warner. Mr. Chairman, the witness just admitted to unauthorized disclosure of classified information. As Director of National Intelligence, I formally request this committee refer this matter to the Department of Justice for immediate criminal investigation. Warner looked uncomfortable. He was a Democrat, but also chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and she was right. The law was clear. Director Gabbard, we'll take that under advisement. With respect, Mr. Chairman, this isn't advisory. A sitting member of Congress just admitted to a felony. 12 felonies, in fact. That requires action. She didn't back down, didn't soften. This was the warrior now, the soldier who took an oath. I've provided documented evidence of 12 separate violations. I've provided video evidence of his admissions. I've provided damage assessments showing compromised sources and methods. And now I have his confession. This committee's responsibility is oversight of intelligence agencies. That includes oversight of Congress members with access to classified information. If you don't act, you're condoning the very abuses you're supposed to prevent. Warner knew she was right, knew he had no choice. We'll conduct a review and refer as appropriate. Today, Mr. Chairman, the referral happens today, or I go to the Attorney General directly. She meant it. Everyone could see she meant it. Warner looked at his fellow committee members. The Republicans were nodding. Even some Democrats looked like they agreed. Raskin had always been too theatrical, too self-important. He wasn't popular even in his own party. Very well. The committee will vote on a criminal referral at the end of this hearing. Tulsi nodded, turned back to Raskin. He was sitting now, slumped in his chair. His lawyer had given up trying to advise him. The damage was done. Career over. Prison looming. But Tulsi wasn't finished. Tulsi stood in the center of the room, between the committee and Raskin. Every eye was on her, every camera focused. This was the moment that would be remembered, clipped, shared, viewed millions of times. She spoke not to Raskin, but to America, to the cameras, to history. I took an oath at 18 years old when I enlisted in the Hawaii Army National Guard. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Her voice was steady, strong, the voice of someone who had lived those words. I took that oath again when I deployed to Iraq, when they pinned on my sergeant's stripes, when I came home, when I became an officer. I took it again when I was sworn in as a member of Congress 4 times, every 2 years. And I took it again when I became Director of National Intelligence. 7 times I've taken that oath, and I meant it every time. She looked at Raskin. You took that oath too, Congressman, when you were sworn in. Multiple times. Same words, same promise. Pause. Did you mean it? He didn't answer. Because, from where I'm standing, you forgot what those words mean. Support and defend the Constitution. Not your party, not your political allies, not your career. The Constitution. The First Amendment protects American speech. Even speech you disagree with. Even speech critical of government. Especially that speech. The Fourth Amendment protects Americans from unreasonable searches and seizures, from government surveillance without cause, from being treated as suspects for their beliefs. The Fifth Amendment guarantees due process, fair trials, the presumption of innocence, not show trials, not guilty until proven innocent, not political prosecutions. Her voice rose, not shouting, but forceful, passionate. You violated all of those amendments, said. You built a surveillance state. You targeted political opponents. You ran show trials disguised as investigations. You leaked classified information to destroy people. You weaponized government against Americans. And you did it all while claiming to defend democracy, while wrapping yourself in the Constitution, while lecturing others about threats to our republic. She stepped toward him, a final approach. You're not defending democracy, Congressman. You're the one destroying it. You're the tyrant. You're the threat. You are everything you claim to fight against. Her voice dropped, quiet, deadly. I deployed to Iraq to fight people who wanted to destroy America. I watched friends die defending this country. I spent 20 years in uniform, protecting Americans from external threats. I never imagined the biggest threat would come from inside, from people like you, elected officials who weaponize government against their own citizens, who use intelligence agencies as political tools, who turn the Constitution into a weapon against the people it's supposed to protect. She was 3 feet away now, staring down at him. You called me a Russian asset, a traitor, someone who betrayed America. But I'm not the traitor here, Congressman. You are. The words hung in the air. Final. Irrevocable. I kept my oath. You broke yours. I defended the Constitution. You perverted it. I served America. You served yourself. She straightened, stepped back, her military bearing returning. As Director of National Intelligence, I have authority and responsibility to protect classified information, to prevent its unauthorized disclosure, to hold accountable anyone who compromises national security. That includes members of Congress. Final statement, the verdict. Congressman Jamie Raskin, I am formally recommending to the Department of Justice that you be prosecuted for unauthorized disclosure of classified information, multiple counts, multiple felonies. I'm recommending to the House Ethics Committee that you be investigated for abuse of power, violation of House rules, and conduct unbecoming a member of Congress. I'm recommending to this committee that your security clearance be immediately revoked, and that you be barred from accessing any classified information pending investigation. And I'm recommending to the American people that you be held accountable through the legal system, through the electoral process, through whatever means are necessary and appropriate. She walked back to the witness table, gathered her materials, closed her folders, and stood tall. You want to know why I left the Democratic Party? Because of people like you. Because the party I joined, the party of FDR, of JFK, of civil liberties and government accountability, became the party of surveillance states and political persecution. You wear the Constitution like a costume. I live it like a creed. Final words directed at the camera, at America, to every American watching this. To every citizen who's been targeted for their beliefs, who's been watch-listed for their speech, who's been persecuted for their politics, I see you, I believe you, and I'm fighting for you. Because that's what the oath means. Support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I fought foreign enemies in Iraq. Now I'm fighting domestic enemies here. She picked up her briefcase. And I don't lose. Walked out, didn't look back. The room erupted in absolute chaos. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, senators conferring frantically. Raskin sat alone, destroyed, his career over, his legacy ruined, his future uncertain. One image captured everything. Raskin slumped at the witness table, Tulsi walking away, confident, victorious, righteous. The warrior defeated the tyrant. Truth defeated lies. Justice prevailed. A CNN breaking news banner scrolled across screens. Breaking! Department of Justice announces indictment of former Congressman Jamie Raskin. The anchor's voice was somber. Former Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin has been indicted on 8 counts of unauthorized disclosure of classified information. The indictment stems from his appearances on news programs during his tenure on the January 6th committee. If convicted on all counts, Raskin faces up to 80 years in prison. Cut to courthouse steps. Raskin walking with his lawyers. No longer the confident professor, but now a defendant? Head down. No statement to the press. A reporter's voice. Raskin resigned from Congress last month following the House Ethics Committee's recommendation for expulsion. He faces trial in 6 weeks. Switch to Fox News. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard announced sweeping reforms today. Tulsi at a press conference, DNI seal behind her. Professional, composed, authoritative. In the past 90 days, we've removed 31,000 Americans from government watch lists. 31,000 citizens who were flagged for protected First Amendment activity. We've disbanded the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Coordination Unit that was targeting political speech. We've ended the partnership between intelligence agencies and social media companies that was censoring Americans. We've declassified thousands of documents related to surveillance abuses, FISA court violations, and political targeting, and we've fired 47 senior intelligence officials who put politics above duty. She looked directly at the camera. The intelligence community exists to protect Americans, not to spy on them. That mission is restored. Cut to the White House. President Trump at the podium. Director Gabbard is doing an incredible job. Incredible. She's cleaning up the mess. The deep state is being dismantled finally. A reporter shouted, "Mr. President, Raskin's lawyers claim this is political prosecution." Trump interrupted. Political? He admitted it. On camera, he leaked classified information. That's not political. That's illegal. Next question. Cut to MSNBC, struggling to spin the story. While Raskin's prosecution has merit based on the technical violations, there are questions about whether this sets a dangerous precedent. The host sounded uncertain, not convincing even herself. Cut to conservative media, celebrating, finally, accountability. For years, we watched them weaponize government, target conservatives, spy on citizens, and now, finally, someone is being held accountable. Social media montage. Tulsi was right trending. Raskin indicted trending. Deep state. Exposed trending. Clips from the hearing going viral. Millions of views. Tulsi's "I kept my oath. You broke yours." 40 million views. Her walking out while Raskin sat defeated. 50 million views. The moment she exposed his leaks. 60 million views. Conservative America had a new hero. A warrior who fought the deep state and won. Early morning, Arlington National Cemetery. Quiet, peaceful, sacred. Tulsi walked alone. No security detail, no staff. Just her and the fallen. She was in civilian clothes. Jeans, a simple jacket, running shoes, the off-duty warrior. She walked to a specific section, Section 60, the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, the recent wars, her generation. Stopped at a grave. Sergeant First Class Michael Rodriguez, killed in action, Iraq, 2005, age 26. She knelt, placed a small American flag at the headstone, and spoke quietly. "Hey, Mike, it's been a while. The morning breeze rustled through the trees. I promised you something in Iraq. When we loaded you onto that helicopter, when I couldn't save you, I promised I'd protect what you died for." She touched the headstone. "I'm keeping that promise. The Constitution you swore to defend, the rights you fought for, the Americans you protected. I'm fighting for them now. Not with a rifle, not in a desert, but here in Washington, against people who forgot what service means." She stood, looked at the rows of white headstones. Thousands of them. Thousands of promises made. Thousands of sacrifices given. You all died believing America was worth it. That our system, for all its flaws, was worth defending. That the Constitution meant something. I won't let your deaths be for nothing. I won't let politicians pervert what you died for. I won't let your sacrifice be used to justify tyranny. The sun rose over the cemetery, golden light touching the stones. "Rest easy, Mike, all of you. I've got the watch now." She saluted, slow, deliberate, respectful, then turned, walked away through the rows of graves, past the tomb of the unknown soldier, past the eternal flame at Kennedy's grave, past all the reminders of sacrifice. Her phone buzzed. Work, always work. Intelligence briefing, threat assessment, the daily grind of protecting America. She answered. "This is Director Gabbard." Listened, responded. "Proceed with the operation. Keep me updated every 2 hours." Hung up, continued walking. The warrior's work never ends. But she didn't complain, because this was the oath. This was the promise. This was the mission. Support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. She'd fought both. She'd defeated both. And she'd keep fighting. For every American who believes in the Constitution, for every veteran who served honorably, for every family destroyed by political persecution, for everyone who trusts that the system, when led by people who honor their oaths, can work. She reached her car, looked back at the cemetery one last time, whispered to the fallen, "I kept my oath for all of you, and I'll never stop." Drove away into the sunrise, into another day of service. The warrior, the patriot, the defender of the Constitution. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, Keeper of Promises, Fighter of Tyrants, Servant of America. This is fiction, but the threats were real. Real Americans were placed on watch lists for political beliefs. Real veterans were targeted for criticizing government. Real families were destroyed by political prosecutions. Real whistleblowers were punished for exposing abuse. The weaponization of government was real. The surveillance state was real. The two-tiered justice system was real. What happened in this story? The accountability, the reforms, the justice. That's what should happen. That's what must happen. Because in America, we don't let tyrants win. We hold them accountable. We demand justice. We defend the Constitution every single time. No matter who the tyrant is, no matter what party they represent, no matter how powerful they think they are. The oath matters. The Constitution matters. Truth matters. Justice matters. And warriors like Tulsi Gabbard prove it by keeping their promises, by honoring their oaths, by fighting for what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's what service means. That's what the oath demands. That's what America deserves. Warriors who fight for the Constitution, not for power, not for politics, but for principle, for justice, for truth.